Hello everybody, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. I'm going to pull this table just a little bit closer. Alright, hope everyone is doing well, staying safe, enjoying life, living in abundance and prosperity, and enjoying every minute possible of this existence. So for today's video, I basically just wanted to start off where we left in the last video. I did an introductory video on the Goetia and the Lesser and Greater Key of Solomon and kind of reviewed this book right here. This is the Lesser and Greater Key, the Goetia, and the Testament of Solomon, all in one book. And I kind of read from some of this in the last video, and then we went over to Donald Michael Craig's Modern Magic, and he kind of rationalizes a lot of what is in the older documents and stuff. If you go back to the last video, there were basically three things that Donald Michael Craig says is necessary for this to work. And this is where we left off. After years of study, practice, and analysis, I came to the conclusion that there were just three primary things a student of magic had to memorize, internalize, and be able to do. These three things are the development of a positive attitude about success with magic, the ability to generate or raise magical energy, and the ability to manipulate and direct the raised energy. And then he goes on to individually examine each of these concepts. Because we were talking about in the last video how there's these long like conjurations to bring the spirits forth, and then if they don't do what you say, there's like all these you basically provoke them, and then you start cursing them like greater and greater if they don't fulfill your wishes. And Donald Michael Craig saying that's all kind of, these are the three most important things right here, which we just read. And if we examine each concept, the idea of a positive attitude about magic is that not hope or wish that the magic you are doing is going to work. This does not mean that magic is nothing more than a mental practice. If you are ailing, a doctor can give you medicines, but unless you really wish to get better, there will be a much longer healing period. And in fact, you might not heal at all. This is a mental will to live, which can affect you on the physical plane. That's actually something that's resonated with me for a long time now, and it's like an occult thing that a lot of people don't really understand. Wow, this could get deep for a second. So, the last time I got sick, it was actually like right as I was finishing this book, ironically. I was like just in the process of getting done reading it. I was working through some mental stuff, like some negative thoughts and stuff that I just was working through at the time. Thankfully now I have a lot more peace of mind because I've let certain things go. And I've talked it out at this point and such, and it's kind of worked out, but it was really tearing me apart at the time, and it was kind of like that whole will to live thing when we're in a dark place, whether it's, you went through a bad breakup with somebody, maybe you for some reason lost your home or something, maybe you lost a loved one in your life. It's something hard. It's something that's, it is a major trial, and you can lose that kind of will to live. And I've seen people, not only myself, but I know it to be true for me, when I kind of lost the will or just had no motivation left. I felt like there was no hope at all. Those ended up being the times that I would be the sickest. And especially for me, what I do for normal work purposes, this is really what I love to do. I love to research and spread this knowledge and light. And I'm also a musician, so I do a lot of music stuff. These are the things that really light my soul. The normal work, the everyday work that you have to do, at least I don't do factory work. I work like in a grocery store, but it's still kind of soul-sucking stuff. Like, it just drains your energy, the place, a lot. And if you're stuck there for a long time, when I work a lot of consecutive days in a row, and I just feel like I have no control about things outside of work in my life because I'm just stuck there. It has really put me in a negative spot, like mentally, a lot in the past. And this is more importance for doing like banishings. Is, like even today, I did the LBRP. I did my whole curriculum basically for the day. I guess, yeah, curriculum would be a good word, or my routine, my new routine, my new magical routine, which is, it has been lately, LBRP, LIRP, LVX, LBRH, LVX again, middle pillar, and then I finish it all up with an LBRP. So yeah, that's been the routine that I've done lately, and it seems to work as far as cleansing and building up a lot of energy. There haven't been a lot of specific things I'm directing it towards, other than working on this YouTube channel, also working on my book, and working on some music stuff as well. But I'm getting off topic because, which I tend to do. We were talking about how when you're sick, it doesn't matter if you take the medicine, if you don't believe that you're going to get better. And if the whole world was able to, be at a state of peace, if we all learn how to meditate and we're playing like sacred tones like I have playing on the TV right now, they just help put me at ease. I think the world could be a really changed place. It's we could make ourselves healthy by living within our true wills, and then spreading these practices and these meditations among humanity so that we can all be at a perfect harmony and resonance. We just have a lot of consciousness to spread and a lot of catching up to do. But magic works the same way. If you don't believe in it, it won't work. You have to know that it will succeed. The second part of the needed skills is the ability to generate magical energy. This you've been doing when you practice the middle pillar ritual. The middle pillar is really strong. I think the LVX is actually very strong. Like when you pull down the divine light, you feel it and you see it. You're actually able to see the geometries that you've drawn, thus far. So I think for building up energy, that's just as powerful, especially for a shorter routine in the middle pillar. The middle pillar, I visualize a lot more at this point, instead of just, the beams, and then on the ground. Also, the entire tree of life on the body, along with the Archangel that corresponds with each Sephiroth on the tree of life. Imagining all that, trying to imagine it simultaneously. And one of my friends gave the advice that if you can pull your perspective up, she will see it from like the left-hand corner looking down on herself. It actually adds a lot more to these practices. You're able to see it from an even bigger picture when the magnifying glass is pulled back. Okay. The second part, is the ability to generate magical energy. The third part of magic is to learn the ability to manipulate and direct the energy. This you have been practicing with the circulation of the body of light and LBRP. When you're moving the energy with the athame, you're directing that white light in a circle around yourself. In fact, your work with all of the rituals has helped you develop the abilities to generate, manipulate, and direct energy. I don't know how much of this is really kind of getting into what we want to read as far as these invocations of these spirits. I'm just going to keep reading what's here, though. A student would have practiced for hours and would learn where in a ritual that energy should be raised and how it should be directed. With all this training, there is no need to include these concepts in any book on magic. The student was supposed to know these things. This is why all ancient grimoires are purposefully incomplete. Okay, so that's important right there. Earlier in these lessons, I pointed out how a simple sentence was the key to gray magic. However, when I first wrote it earlier in these lessons, you may have glossed over it because I didn't specifically draw your attention to it. Let me go ahead and read through this silently and see if there's anything super important. They're talking about code words and things, which makes sense because I'm sure a lot of the things in this are code word, because some of the rituals are just so bizarre. A friend pointed out to me that witches, she is a Wiccan, frequently used codes in their Book of Shadows, which is kind of like a grimoire, essentially. As an example, baby's blood was a code for strawberry juice. Thus, if the book fell into the hands of an uninitiated person, the person would be too scared or too offended to try out any information in the book. So it's kind of like a turnoff for people who don't know what's going on. They're uninitiated, profane, so to speak. Donald Michael Craig saying that one day he had a flash of realization and realized that the grimoires had codes so that idiots like himself wouldn't get into trouble doing things that he was not prepared for yet. He's just saying he had all these questions about grimoires. He was wondering. One of the questions, I'll just read one of them. Why does incense of a particular scent draw entities from other levels of existence to the physical plane? That's a good question. He says, if it is because they like the astral form of the incense, as some claim, they could stay on the astral plane and enjoy it without having to materialize. That makes sense. And then he comes upon, Donald Michael Craig comes across this magician that said, some magicians wrongly believe that entities were only drawn to the local area of the astral plane so that they could be more easily dealt with. Naturally, he had never done evocations of any sort himself. Okay, it's just going over a couple other things. I discovered that 3 Crowley-oriented groups I was aware of believed and practiced magical evocations only to the astral plane. Finally, really making my understanding sure, I read in a book called Aspects of Occultism by Diane Fortune. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. I've seen that name a lot across these books, different esoteric works. In the great majority of cases of evocative magic, the form is built up on the astral and can only actually be seen by the clairvoyant, though any sensitive person can feel its influence. The initiated magician is usually, unless engaged in some special experiment or research, content to evoke to visible appearance on the astral, depending upon his psychic powers for communication with the entity evoked. He does not go to the trouble to evoke to visible appearance on the physical, because if he is an adequate psychic, astral appearance serves his purpose just as well. In fact, better, because it is more congenial to the nature of the beings and places less limitation upon their activities. So basically, it makes more sense to evoke them to physical appearance on the astral instead of evoking them to visible appearance on the physical plane. Certain substances can be used to induce physical manifestation. Fortune adds of these substances, the principal one is fresh blood. Interesting. However, their ability to give off excreta can be used for the same purpose. However, their ability to give off ectoplasm from which these entities can create a physical appearance wears off by the time the body heat has dropped. This corresponds with the tantric belief that semen loses its magical potency within 15 minutes after ejaculation. And that's some advanced stuff that's really getting into like sex magic. And there's two different kinds of sex magic, which people kind of, they think it's all like this physical, tantric, like weird, whatever. They just put labels on it. But there's energetic sex magic, and then there's physical sex magic, or I'm not sure if that's the name for it. And that's in an even later chapter that they get into that. But yeah, one actually deals more with, a lot of physical things going on with the use of, sexual fluids and such. And then another kind of sex magic is more an energy-based sex magic, where it's more a transference of energy rather than dealing with different ointments or whatever they're putting on their body or ingesting. That's a little more, there's a lot of people who use that or do that. That's just not particularly, my path. I have experimented with, the flows of energies and stuff, but that's pretty much it. Just working more on an energetic plane when it comes to like sexuality and stuff. The transference of energy and kind of almost like a Tau cross. It has the loop around, you bring the energy back into yourself. We may get into all that stuff later, but that's not really what I originally made this channel for. But if we cover a lot of like prerequisite stuff, a lot of rudimentary stuff, we might be able to move on to more advanced, talks and such like that. Okay, where is he getting with all of this? Since this course is an introduction to ceremonial magic, we will not be going into the study of evoking entities to the physical plane, and there will be no instructions for blood sacrifices. Usually a few drops of one's own blood on these pages. But will the idea of evocation only to the astral plane answer the questions we have? Let's go through some of them and see. Are the grimoires lying or in code when they say that by using the rituals in them you can evoke a being or entity onto the physical plane? Neither, because they don't say that. They merely say that you can evoke an entity to physical appearance. You can see them. Certainly this can and does include seeing them on the astral plane. Why are there at least two people present when doing a magical evocation? This is so that one can perform the ritual and the other one can act as a seer into the astral plane. Why is a circle drawn within the triangle wherein entities are supposed to manifest? Because this is where a circular magic mirror is placed. The seer may look in this mirror to aid in being able to see on the astral plane. It is a physical doorway to the astral plane. How do the pentacles for magical evocation work? The seer contemplates them during the ritual. The pentacles help put the seer's mind in a state receptive to a particular entity. Why do entities like a particular incense? Whether or not they enjoy it is irrelevant. The scent affects the seer and helps put the seer in a physically receptive state. And finally, what is the need to call an entity over and over? Shouldn't they obey on the first call if our magic is correct? Yes, if our theory of magic is correct, they need only be called once. Unfortunately, the minds of humans are not so easily controlled. The seer may need large doses of incense, many minutes of contemplating the pentacles, and frequent repetition of the evocations to open his or her psychic vision to that level of the astral plane where they can see and communicate with an entity that has come to do the magician's bidding. So it starts to get pretty intense. And not that this is the case in this stuff, but in Liber 420, Cannabis, Magical Herbs, and the Occult, I know that there was an occult seer that would have, I think he had like a younger boy with him or something, like maybe a teenager or something, but he ended up like overdosing him on opium, and he was trying to get him to be the seer and to see something in the operation, but it ended up going really dangerous. So it's kind of actually a sad story, but it's interesting, like the links, that people will go to be able to commune with these things. And for me, it's more just this stuff, getting away from like the LBRP and the middle pillar. This is more of just like scholarly interest to me, and I'm just now learning about. this stuff really in just kind of more the past like 6 months, year. I've read about it a little bit before. If you're a Freemason or if you study Freemasonry, it's interesting to note that there's a lot of lore about, as we said before, in the Testament of Solomon, about the demons, being controlled by Solomon to help him with the construction of Solomon's temple. So it makes you wonder in Masonic ritual, when they are referring to the builders of the temple, are these other craftsmen, are these masons, or is it talking more about the demons that were summoned by Solomon? Because Solomon was the wisest, of all men, particularly at that time, is what the lore tells us. And his name is threefold: Sol, On, Sol. Om's the primordial vibration of the universe, and On, the city of light, which when we flip a light switch on. So he's a very, very magical guy, and he's part of the lineage of Jesus Christ, so. And a lot of the books, like the Book of Raziel, which I probably won't have time to get to it in this video. We'll go ahead and wait till another video. But the Book of Raziel talks about the lore of, from Adam to Abraham and Isaac, and all the way down the line, all these patriarchal fathers, Moses, all the way to King Solomon. So all these guys are really connected. All this ceremonial magic stuff, all of it, the transference of this knowledge is connected with these biblical patriarchs. So it's a really cool, interesting story. I think I'll just go ahead and read a little bit more about this stuff in Donald Michael Craig's book, Modern Magic here. I don't think I'm going to do too many more videos on like the Goetia or anything after this. I was really surprised that I got like 5 likes, I think, already on the video after just like 2 days of posting it. So thank you guys for like tuning in and watching these videos and actually, being a part of this. It's really cool. But until I study more on the Goetia and stuff, this is just an introduction to it all. I'd like to go back and cover other stuff and then learn more about this, and then I'll talk more about it once I'm more educated on the subject. I'm also playing through the Ocarina of Time again, Zelda, and I've already done 4 parts, a Zelda series. I've got it in a playlist, and I think I made it all the way in the game to Impa, where she gives you the Shadow Medallion. And there's a little bit of lore I missed from earlier in the game that I will probably want to cover over when I do the next video, and then cover the lore of like the last 30 minutes of the cutscenes, like Ganondorf and all that stuff, and do one more video on that. And then I'll go back to like the Hiram key and stuff like that. But this will be probably the last video on this for a while. Before I forget, I want to also show you guys these wands that I use in like the LBRP and my practices. And each one I lay down in a quarter, the north, east, west, and south. And the colors are associated with the archangels. This one's for the east. It's purple. I don't know how well you can see that in the light, but it's really, really pretty. Might be a little bit blurry. Anyway, because Raphael, his robes are like a bright yellow, but it has purple on the edges. And he carries the caduceus staff. This one's for Michael, and I can't remember what the stones are on all of these. I believe the first one was amethyst. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. I don't know. This looks like some kind of amber or like red quartz almost or something, but I don't know exactly what it is. Hopefully you can see that and it's not too dang blurry. It looks kind of blurry on my screen as I'm trying to record it and such. For Archangel Michael, his flaming sword, he's got, the lion as his animal. I think maybe this I'm pretty sure this is turquoise of some kind. And this is the blue one for the west, Archangel Gabriel. And I focus a lot on, visualizing the archangels and putting the energy into that even before the ritual starts, as I'm laying them down, so that they add to the visualization. And the powers of these, they're already imbued with the powers of the archangels. They've already been consecrated for that purpose. So Gabriel, the archangel of water. And this stone, I cannot remember what this is. It almost reminds me of like fool's gold a little bit, but it's more solid. It's just like a darker stone, and it's black. And this is for Oriel, of course, the archangel of earth, of the forest. I usually see him in the forest, and he's got a pentacle and like some barley or wheat, a sheaf of wheat with the bull. He's the archangel that's kind of, I think, in a lot of ways closer to us, because he's the archangel of the element earth. So he's a little more tangible, whereas the other archangels are more, I see them more as like almost in a different dimension, more like light oriented. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I'm assuming that most of the people that have definitely gotten this far into this video are more ceremonial magicians. You've done the LBRP. So I hope you can appreciate the synchronicities and the correspondences in those wands. I used to use, when I would go out in the woods and meditate, I would use gather sticks and use the pieces of the sticks as the 4 quarters, the compass directions, so I knew which way to face. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I think maybe just read a little bit more. This is on the difference between invocation and evocation. There are some authors who use invocation as a synonym of evocation. This error is never made by real magicians and is only presented by writers who either have no practical magical experience or those who wish to blur the differences. The blurring is usually done in an attempt to make all forms of magical work seem the same in order to cast negative aspersions on all magic. Well, that's no good. If you have been doing the work of this course, you will find evocative magic very safe. Its purpose is to allow you to communicate with other intelligences, powers, or entities that do not exist on our physical plane. So let's go back to review, because when you are working with the archangels in the beginning, the LBRP, it's evocation, the evocation of the archangels, not invocation. I think we're about to read it here, but from what I remember of invocation, a lot of people do like invoking as a prayer. It's where you're pulling the energy like into yourself. It's almost more of like a channeling, whereas evocation is like you're calling forth. So let's read that again. If you have been doing the work of this course, you will find evocative magic very safe. Its purpose is to allow you to communicate with other intelligences, powers, or entities that do not exist on our physical plane. Some people contend that we are only communicating with aspects of our unconscious minds that are normally hidden. These are typically magicians that would be more Freudian or like more scientific in the way that they think and stuff, which is fine. You can have a more scientific linear view, but for me, if you don't combine that with the mystical understanding, not only the belief, but the knowingness of a supreme source, and you understand how those modalities of existence work on the higher planes and are pulling themselves down into here, not just as a state of our, not just as a mental state, but as an actual thing that's happening through creation, I think it adds a lot more power to your magic personally. Donald Michael Craig says, whether or not this is so, I do not know or care. It's not so much about, exactly, it's more about if it works. For me personally, I do, it is like a relationship with this divine source, though. It's not just me and my mind, itself. That's kind of silly, but I'm going to continue forward. I'm not going to stop too much on philosophy, try to get some of this information out. This is because evocative magic functions as if one is dealing with other entities, and no matter the source, is treated as if one is dealing with external intelligences. For me, the archangels are external and internal. Like they are, I do see them as aspects of myself, but also it's working with an external source. You know, that's just, for me, one of my friends always explained it to me. God is separate from the creation because if a carpenter, crafts a chair, there's clearly a difference between the intelligence of that human, that there's a soul in that body, and creating a physical object like a chair. Is it the same difference, with its God as the superior being or awareness creating this, other thing, this physical thing, if we're doing an as above, so below correspondence. But Kabbalists, I believe, see it more as God like poured himself into existence. So it's, it gets kind of confusing, I think, when you get into those, theories of discussion on that kind of a level. I have seen many serious problems develop after the use of invocatory magic, not evocation. We're talking about invocation now, by those who are not competent in magic. Invocation is the magical act wherein you allow your body to be temporarily shared by another entity. And there's actually, it seems to be, I have read in some, if we're going to go back to sex magic real quick, talking about that, just momentarily, about how you allow these other gods and goddesses to overtake your body, and then it's not just you having sex with your partner or whoever it is in the magical operation. It's like two beings are using your bodies. I don't know. It gets very, very interesting. So those are just some more advanced concepts we're not really going to get into here. It's only stuff I've only ever read about. It gets pretty crazy. Invocation is the magical act, as I said before, wherein you allow your body to be temporarily shared by another entity. Oh, I got a scratch in my throat. The modern name of this process is channeling. We see this with a lot of people, like Bashar. I don't know if you've ever seen Bashar on YouTube. And there's a lot of people who have YouTube channels who don't seem to have any background of ceremonial magic or anything like that, and they're channelers. They claim to be anyway. Some of them seem pretty legit, but they channel these intelligences into their body. I think one of the most genuine channeled stuff I've ever read or heard is the Saint Germain stuff. I think that almost seems like it's so beautiful and just so perfect that it seems very God inspired, like it really was channeled, by a benevolent source. But let's continue here. The modern name of this of invoking is channeling. As long as your banishings are properly done and the magician chooses whom to allow to join in the use of his or her body, there is no danger. It is when there is little thought or control in the magical act that problems occur. He says he's been in too many Wiccan rituals where the aspects of divinity, generically called the god and the goddess, have been successfully and safely invoked. It is quite a remarkable transformation, as the facial characteristics of the people into whom the god and goddess are involved, usually the high priest and high priestess, and even the body's carriage sometimes seems to alter and give a far more regal appearance than the normal daily appearance of these people. Very interesting, because that's a topic that I've kind of like thought about a lot before. There's something stuck in that book. Is when you do these practices and stuff, it seems to almost give you some level of, it's working on your aura and stuff, but you're almost like immortalizing yourself to a certain degree, and you usually feel more calm. And I think a lot of that stuff can manifest externally. People will notice when you've done some of these practices, your aura is getting bigger. You're just more powerful, and people can feel that. And so he's saying that these people have allowed You know, there's a god and goddess who are invoked during these ceremonies, and it changes the physical appearance of people. I've had lots of instances where I've been in pretty, almost, you know, it's almost like a kind of trippy, because you look at somebody and one moment they almost look like they've kind of shifted a little bit, like a shape-shifting type thing. I think we all have that going on to certain degrees, and I've heard some pretty interesting stories about where people do totally shapeshift. You know, there's lots of stories I've heard from different people with that kind of a thing going on, but that kind of goes into a whole other topic of things. We'll get back to this book real quick, finish up the difference between the invocation and evocation, and I'll go ahead and finish this. Done properly, this magical procedure is quite safe and quite thrilling. Should always be done with positive entities, of course. What's it say? Or if you prefer positive aspects of your unconscious, and never with unknown or negative entities. Those who might give suggestions, if followed, would increase our burden of negative karma. 2 instances when invocation or channeling can be dangerous, or at least very anti-productive. The first is when you perform no banishings and invite absolutely any entity to share your body, of course. Yet a whole religion, he says, is developed based on this magical act, you know, not, which I was kind of just saying before. I'm just going to go and read all of this. When you perform no banishing and invite absolutely any entity to share your body, certainly from your readings and practice and thoughts about magic, you can see just how dangerous it would be. This religion is known as spiritualism or spiritism, or like, I guess it would be along the lines of New Ageism, New Age occultism, which isn't, it's very, New Agey is not a big thing, not a thing I'm big on. And you can usually tell when people are genuine and they're giving out like real information, and when it's just a bunch of hoopla, like generic type stuff, you know, or like horoscopes, like, oh, you'll get that job, like, you know, this month or whatever. It's just such mundane like type stuff. It's not really digging into the deeper mysteries of things. Most practicing occultists tend to frown on the practice of spiritism because it allows virtually any entity to communicate. It says there's seances. There have been instances of damages in seances caused by these low elementals, and some mediums have ended their lives as alcoholics. Just because something, usually a very low astral entity, more on this in a later lesson, says it is Uncle Charlie doesn't mean it's so. Of course not. Yeah, it just says too many people, he says too many people get caught up, like, giving messages, like, pretending to be, like, deceased loved ones and stuff. Please understand that I am not condemning any of this. Certainly everyone is entitled to his or her own religious beliefs. Nor am I condemning invocatory magic, invoking. What he's condemning is really the lack of preparation, you know, and blind acceptance of frequently wrong, or as we were just saying before, valueless information. Let's see if there's anything else that is really important. Here we go, this will be interesting. Another instance of danger that could occur is if a negative entity is invoked. One of the most fascinating stories about Aleister Crowley is how he allowed the demon Chronozon to be invoked into his body. Once invoked, the demon tried to attack Crowley's assistant using numerous ploys. Some people believe that Crowley's success began to diminish after this, perhaps because Chronozon was never properly banished. That's pretty interesting. Invocation is a very important part of magic, but for safety it must be done correctly. And he'll cover it in another lesson. Alrighty, I feel like there was one more thing that I had read that was pretty important. that had something to do with the Goetia. Yeah, let me just read this paragraph, I think. This is... Yeah, it was just something I'd kind of like skimmed over before I started this video. The Greater Key of Solomon... The Greater Key of Solomon is readily available at bookstores. Okay, many occultists claim that the lesser key deals with evil spirits and the greater key deals with good ones. This is merely a repetition of what other ill-informed writers have claimed. There is not one bit of proof that one key deals with evil spirits and the other deals with good ones. The greater key is divided into two major sections or books. The second of these books describes the various tools or weapons of the magician, including several that do not seem appropriate for the practice of high magic at all, but this is necessary as the first book of the Greater Key is a combination of high and low magic methods, so it's not just high magic. And low magic is more for obtaining like material and goods and physical change rather than like the transmutation of the soul or conversation with the holy guardian angel. As an example of the latter, low magic, the greater key includes a method of making oneself invisible using a small image of yellow wax in the form of a man. This type of image magic, sometimes called puppet magic, is not in the repertoire of most Kabbalistic magicians. This is far more in the realm of natural or low magic. Also kind of reminds me of like more of voodoo a little bit, like where they have like the little doll and, you know, with the pinpricks and stuff. I don't know if there's much correlation between the two. But anyway, I think that covers basically what I wanted to, you know, go over in this video. So that'll be all on like the Goetia and the Lesser and Greater Key of Solomon for now. Hopefully it's helped with a little bit of misunderstandings that one may get if one reads, you know, these older manuscripts and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And once we go back and cover some other, you know, rituals and stuff and kind of get our curriculum built up a little bit more foundation, we'll come back and we'll review this stuff. So thank you everyone for bearing with me. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Thank you for being a part of all this. I think the 1 year anniversary of this channel is like March 8th or something, so it's next month. I don't know if that date's correct, but it's right around there, the beginning of March. So that would be awesome if we could reach like 300 subscribers by then. That would be sweet. And I'll try to do like maybe a special video for the 1 year anniversary. If there's anything special you guys want me to cover, just let me know. But I'm going to take off for now. Peace and blessings. I might possibly do a video later tonight, but I don't know if I'll get both videos posted today. We'll see. I'll try and at least get this video posted. So take care, everyone. Peace and blessings. Love you.